My father, reluctant to part with me for a marriage alliance, has compelled me to select a suitable prince consort within a single day. I glanced toward my childhood companion, the heir apparent, only to hear his inner thoughts. I have long since pledged my heart to Xier should the princess choose me. I shall have to decline, citing my father's recent passing. Next, I turned to the amiable grand tutor, but his heart lamented. My kindness toward the princess has always been a tactic to prevent her from opposing Xier. If she insists on marrying, I shall have no choice but to take the elixir of severance, vowing fidelity to Xier for a lifetime. Xier is my royal sister. With a heavy sigh, I was about to inform my father of my consent to the marriage alliance when a voice, filled with sorrow, echoed from the corner. The heir and the grand tutor are both unworthy. If they refuse, then I shall gladly accept. I turned to see that the voice belonged to my longtime rival, the legless young general. His expression remained unchanged, yet his heart raced with fervor. If only my leg could be healed by the miraculous five-colored spirit fungus, I would immediately lead my troops into battle, ensuring the princesses would no longer suffer the indignity of marriage alliances. Five-colored spirit fungus? I recalled that among the contraband seized from the border the other day, there happened to be one. Upon realizing my ability to hear the thoughts of others, the task of selecting a prince consort became significantly simpler. Changlo, why do you linger in silence? These gentlemen are all eagerly awaiting your benevolence. My father's cheerful voice resonated from above, prompting me to sigh inwardly. His confidence in me was so profound that he failed to notice that none of the gentlemen had their eyes set on me. They were all gazing at my sister, Princess Changxi, who stood behind me. Seeing my silence, my father assumed I was unable to make a choice and unilaterally pointed to the heir, Wei Lan. The heir is your cousin. Having grown up alongside you, I have every confidence in him. Yet, before I could decline, Wei Lan knelt, refusing. Your Majesty, my father has only just passed in mourning. I cannot entertain thoughts of marriage. His reasoning was impeccable, yet my father, ever protective of me, insisted. A betrothal can be arranged. My Changlo is still young and can afford to wait. Wei Lan stiffened, refusing to lift his gaze, thereby effectively rejecting the proposal. Simultaneously, his thought surfaced. The princess dares to cast glances at His Majesty. I know her heart has long been inclined toward me, yet I cannot presume upon His Majesty's favor to act as I please. I pointed to myself in confusion. Had I truly harbored feelings for him all along? Noticing my father's growing displeasure, I quickly interjected. As cousins sharing the same mother, to avoid speculation among the officials, it would be best not to intertwine our fates further. As I caught a grateful look from Wei Lan, my heart stirred with myriad emotions. My father nodded in agreement. Changlo speaks wisely. Then he directed his attention to the grand tutor, Yanqing. What of the grand tutor? Though he is a few years older, I perceive he has treated you well. He has no family ties to mourn, allowing for a swift union. Yanqing pursed his lips, gazing sorrowfully at Changxi, and I heard his thoughts. Xier, forgive me, I can no longer remain by your side. Even if I were to marry the princess, my heart will always belong to you. A chill ran down my spine, and I abruptly shook my head. No, that won't do. He is too old. Yanqing looked at me, seemingly incredulous that the mischievous princess who often pursued him with inquiries would publicly disdain his age. Wei Lan silently mocked him, yet maintained a serious facade, admonishing me. Changlo, the grand tutor has always been kind to you. How can you so callously wound his heart? I scoffed. And what of cousin? We grew up together, sharing a profound bond, yet, as I am to be sent away for a marriage alliance, you refuse to be my consort. Is that not a wound to my heart as well? Wei Lan's face flushed with embarrassment, yet he found no words to counter. My father sighed, and I heard his thoughts. Changlo has inherited my temperament. If she were to enter a marriage alliance, she would surely suffer indignities, yet these gentlemen failed to recognize her worth. Further, adding to her distress, my eyes brimmed with tears. Throughout my life, my father had always favored me. Even when a rival nation explicitly demanded the royal princess for marriage, he had negotiated, granting me the opportunity to choose. As the eldest princess, born into luxury, it was time for me to make a sacrifice. I stated, perhaps I should go through with the marriage alliance, and no sooner had the words left my lips than Yanqing furrowed his brow in protest. Princess, are you aware that the tyrant emperor is of advanced age? Upon his death, You would be expected to marry his son. What appears to be a marriage alliance is, in reality, a humiliation. You must not go, Wei Lan added. Cousin, if you do not favor me or the grand tutor, you may select another gentleman among the suitors. Why must you speak such defiant words? I retorted coldly. If I do not go, then it must be Chang Shi who takes my place. This pronouncement. A heavy silence enveloped the room. An impasse ensued, punctuated only by the sound of my sister's quiet sobs. After a moment, it was Yan Qing who, gritting his teeth, resolutely declared, "If it pleases the princess, Yan Qing is willing to marry." A sharp sound of knocking interrupted him, drawing everyone's attention. In the corner, seated in a wheelchair, was my adversary, Yan Guihong. He gazed at us with a profound expression, slowly uttering, "Have you all forgotten that there is still another option?" Without waiting for me to speak, Wei Lan chuckled softly, teasingly remarking, "General Yan, you are overthinking. My cousin, the princess of Changlo, has aspirations as lofty as the heavens and would never choose a man who is incomplete. Moreover, your relationship with her is fraught with discord. It is best not to stoke the flames at this moment." Yan Qing, unlike Wei Lan in his impudence, maintained an outward composure, yet inwardly lamented, "Poor General Yan, with his 2 shattered legs. Were he able to take to the battlefield, why would our great Zhao need to resort to marrying off women for peace?" I gazed intently at Yan Guihong, yearning to hear even a whisper of his thoughts. He continued to wear a sullen expression, as frigid as a stone in a latrine, when suddenly I was startled by a furious outburst. "Ah, why does she not choose me? Is it merely because my legs are broken?" I surveyed my surroundings, confirming that it was indeed Yan Guihong speaking, and a pang of bitterness surged within me. The rift in our relationship stemmed solely from my jealousy, as my father favored him over his own daughter. No matter how much I bickered with him, I had never mocked him for his legs. After all, both his parents had sacrificed their lives for the country, and he had taken to the battlefield at the tender age of 9, conquering 3 cities, only to lose his legs in the process. As I shifted my gaze towards him, he lowered his head, despondently reflecting. The master who returned from his travels the other day mentioned that if I could acquire the multicolored spiritual mushroom, he might be able to help me. If my legs could heal, I would immediately lead troops into battle, ensuring that the princesses would no longer be forced into marriage. The multicolored spiritual mushroom? Not long ago, my deputy sent a letter from the frontier, informing me that she had intercepted a treasure trove from the Tartars, which included what seemed to be such a mushroom. My heart stirred at the thought, just as I was about to speak, when I heard the sound of hurried footsteps. My mother stormed through the door, her anger palpable, and the cries of Chang Shi rose in tandem. She did not even glance my way, instead striding past to comfort Chang Shi in her embrace. My father, seeking to diffuse the tension, smiled and said, "You arrived at just the right moment to assist our Chang Lo in making a choice." Yet, my mother merely cast a fleeting glance at me, huffing. She knows full well that Xier is close with Wei Lan and Lord Yan, yet still includes them among the candidates for husband. I am aware she is merely trying to pressure Xier into marriage. I was taken aback, as was my father, for those 2 candidates had been chosen after his careful consideration. The more my mother spoke, the angrier she became, stroking Chang Shi's tear-stained face, her gaze like a dagger directed at me. "From a young age, you have always sought to outdo Xier, taking advantage of your father's favor and disregarding others. I have long refrained from holding this against you, yet how can I tolerate you treating your sister's lifelong happiness as a trifling matter?" Her scolding came in a torrent, leaving me speechless and deeply saddened. My father's preferential treatment towards me was merely due to my mother's preference for the gentle and compliant Chang Shi. Even though Chang Shi was not her biological daughter, she had always regarded her as her own, while in her heart, I remained the outsider. A bitter taste filled my mouth as I strained to keep my eyes wide open, preventing the tears of grievance from spilling forth. Although Wei Lan and Yan Qing felt sympathy for me, they refrained from speaking on my behalf. Why, oh why, did I feel so distant from them despite having done enough to be worthy? In our childhood, they had once cherished me as a precious gem, unwilling to let me suffer even the slightest indignity. Before my mother gave birth to me, she was jostled by palace attendants and was compelled to deliver me prematurely. My cries were barely louder than that of a mewling kitten. In those early days, my mother doted on me, often cradling my wailing form in her arms, soothing me into slumber with gentle whispers. However, her closest companion, Consort Xiu, unexpectedly passed away, leaving her with a swaddled infant, my royal sister, Changxi. Remembering the bond of sisterhood, my mother showered more affection upon Changxi, entrusting me to the care of a wet nurse. The wet nurse, with a cheerful disposition, allowed me to frolic in the trees and splash in the water, while I frequently coaxed my father into playing with me, transforming me into a mischievous little imp over time. In contrast, my mother, adhering to propriety, raised Changxi to be gentle and delicate, her every action embodying the grace of a princess. In my quest for my mother's affection, I covertly competed with Changxi, often reducing her to tears. Yet, this only earned me my mother's disdain. As I matured, I reined in my behavior, adopting the demeanor that pleased her, performing my greetings with utmost respect. Yet, she scarcely acknowledged my presence, instead catching Changxi, who rushed into her embrace, affectionately ruffling her nose. "Don't run so fast. What if you fall?" It was then that I realized her aversion was not to my behavior, but to me as a person. No matter how I transformed, I could not elicit even a modicum of her patience. Yet now, as she unrelentingly chastised me before everyone, my heart ached profoundly. "Your Majesty, the Empress is mistaken." A deep voice resonated behind me, as solid as a sturdy rock, lifting me from despair. Yan Guihong positioned his wheelchair before me, his eyes clear and resolute. "The princess has not chosen either of those two suitors. Instead, she is considering the welfare of Great Zhao and has willingly offered to marry for peace. In my view, the princess is not as the Empress suggests. She is, in fact, the most decisive and resilient woman in the realm." The onlookers were taken aback, seemingly astonished that such words could emanate from Yan Guihong, who often clashed with me. My mother was the first to recover, stubbornly retorting, "Marriage is the duty of a legitimate princess. If she truly harbored such intentions, why would she need to choose a husband? That aged emperor, though a bit older, will surely treat her well. Marrying him would not be a loss." She glared at the sullen-faced Yan Guihong, retorting, "The two candidates I have selected are what I deem suitable for Xier. If Chang'le truly does not wish to marry, why not let her wed this crippled waste?" Her words were unbearably harsh, even causing my usually gentle father to withdraw his smile, fixing my mother with a cold, reproachful stare. Yan Guihong's broken legs were a badge of honor, a testament to his youthful bravery on the battlefield. Who were we, the able-bodied, to remain ensconced in the palace, basking in luxury? I felt a surge of indignation, ready to argue, when I heard Yan Guihong's inner voice. "Enough. The Empress is right. I am but a burden who would only drag her down for a lifetime." I turned to him, my heart aching, only to find his head bowed, shrouded in shadow. He had always been superior to me, once riding back into the capital on a majestic steed, showered with flowers in the streets. Yet, the proudest souls often struggle the most to accept their own shortcomings. Though he maintained an exterior of indifference, his heart was beginning to belittle itself. My mother, believing she had spoken wisely, wore a self-satisfied expression. But I could not help but smile and declare, "Very well." I kneel before my father, bowing deeply. I wish to forge an unbreakable bond with General Yan, never to part. My father, both surprised and concerned, asked, "Is this true?" Meanwhile, he thought to himself, "I trust Guihong. It is merely the matter of his broken legs." I nodded affirmatively. "Indeed, it is true." Wei Lan interjected hastily, "No. Cousin, do not act in haste. The Empress is correct. A man such as he, broken and useless, would not only deprive you of happiness, but also subject you to a lifetime of ridicule and gossip. If you truly care for me," he gritted his teeth, "I will marry you." Yan Qing, with his calm gaze fixed on me, seemed to convey, if the princess were to ask me once more, I too would gladly wed her. These two were quite the jest, having professed undying love for Changxi, yet now they were suddenly eager. I impatiently pushed Wei Lan aside and turned directly towards my future husband. Only then did I notice his face was flushed crimson, standing in stunned silence until I approached him. I leaned down and asked, "And you? Would you marry me?" His grip on his thigh was so tight it nearly turned purple, yet his gaze towards me was filled with longing. He stammered. I have cherished the princess for a long time. To be her husband is a delight I would relish. His wolf-like eyes left me flustered, and I fled in disarray. The emperor, with a sense of relief, issued an edict permitting me to marry Yan Guihong on an auspicious day. The empress, staring blankly at the proceedings, suddenly seemed to recall something and knelt beside me. If Changle's chosen a husband, does that not mean my Xier must be sent away for marriage? Her eyes filled with desperation as she pleaded with the emperor. Xier has been cherished and nurtured by me since childhood. She cannot endure hardship. That ruthless emperor has already killed 2 wives. You cannot send my dear Xier to her doom. It became evident that she understood the grim fate that often befell women sent to marry into foreign lands. It was merely a matter of not loving me enough to shield me from such a destiny. The emperor's temper began to flare, and with a wave of his sleeve, he resolutely declared, "A princess is no pawn, and a Zhao is certainly not a feeble nation. Even amidst turmoil, I shall not allow my daughters to be used as bargaining chips in political marriages." Yet, the generals who best understood the military strategies of the ruthless emperor had already passed away. As the specter of war loomed, no one dared to speak, and the hall grew as cold as an icehouse. Yan Guihong sat quietly to the side, his hand trembling slightly. The great battle 10 years prior had not only decimated the Yan family, but also the Cheng and Ling families and the Du family. Their offspring had yet to mature. And now the ruthless emperor was once again stirring with ambition. I watched as my father's back bent further, feeling a pang of sorrow in my heart. As I exited the palace alongside Yan Guihong, I initially harbored some youthful infatuation, yet in the face of national affairs, such sentiments seemed trivial. The multicolored spirit fungus had already been swiftly delivered by the vice-general. In a few days, I would witness its power firsthand. Yan Guihong, known for his straightforward demeanor, softened his tone, acknowledging there is no need for the princess to worry. Although the young generals Du and Cheng are still in their youth, their determination is undiminished, akin to my own in my earlier years. His words brought a smile to my face. Though I recognized the truth in his assessment, he had once single-handedly forced the ruthless emperor to retreat 10 miles, proving that De Zhao should not be underestimated. I inquired, "If your leg were to heal, do you believe you could secure victory in the coming battle?" He gazed at me, his eyes glimmering with a hint of starlight. "Naturally. That sufficed for me." I whispered, "When your leg is well, I shall accompany you to the battlefield." He did not catch my words, for Wei Lan and Yan Qing had once again followed us, like lingering shadows. Both bore expressions of regret, watching me in silence, none daring to speak. Yet their hearts were engaged in a silent competition. Wei Lan thought, if not for Xier saving me from embarrassment at the Qianqiu banquet, I might have been closer to Changle. Yan Qing mused, Xier's Yonghua poem has captivated the world. Her mastery of etiquette and poetry is unparalleled. Only such a woman is worthy of being the mistress of a Yan family. Changle is carefree by nature. I cannot bear to see her suffer. Saving Wei Lan from embarrassment. That was my doing. The Yonghua poem? I wrote it. Yet, what truly sent chills down my spine was how all these accomplishments had inexplicably become attributed to Changxi. Those who truly understand my nature would never abandon me for a single transgression. Just as I orchestrated for the multicolored spirit fungus to be delivered to Yan Guihong and pretended it was a gift from Changxi, he did not consume it immediately, but instead turned to seek me out. This must be a gift from Changle. I emerged from behind the screen, smiling at him. Do you so firmly believe that I, your sworn rival, would treat you with such kindness? He did not engage in banter but nodded earnestly, which left me momentarily speechless. The wandering master, an old acquaintance of General Yan, was overjoyed upon our acquisition of the multicolored spirit fungus and prepared to administer acupuncture. Half a month passed, and Yan Guihong was able to stand steadily, leaning on me for brief moments. Another half-month later, he moved with ease, eagerly eyeing the sword on the wall, only to be reprimanded back by me. When he was truly able to wield a sword, his first act was to practice his former techniques. I watched with delight as the spirited young general returned to his former self. I took him to meet the emperor, who was nearly overwhelmed with emotion, tears streaming down his face as he embraced Yen Guihong, murmuring for a lengthy while. General Yen had grown up alongside the emperor, supporting him in ascending to the throne and sacrificing himself for the nation's sake. Now, standing before the emperor in perfect health, Yen Guihong had finally restored the emperor's dignity to face the late General Yen and his wife after a century. I petitioned the emperor for permission to join Yen Guihong on the battlefield. The emperor, infuriated, declared that the ruthless emperor had long intended for me to be sent for marriage. Should he capture me, the consequences would be dire. The emperor had always indulged us, remaining unaware that over the years, I had already established a covert network at the border. Now, with Yen Guihong in the open and myself in the shadows, we would strike with greater efficacy. The emperor had no sons. As the eldest princess, it was my duty to shoulder this responsibility. Yen Guihong regarded me with appreciation, saying I was the one most capable of standing by his side in this world. Before the expedition was finalized, a commotion erupted on Changxi's end. She abandoned Wei Lan and Yan Qing, clamoring to go for the marriage alliance. The emperor was at his wit's end, and when summoned, she had already gracefully knelt before him. Despite being a princess, I wished to alleviate father's worries. Yet, I could hear her heart whispering, I am also the daughter of the empress. Why should all the glory go to Changlo? After a moment of contemplation, I suggested to the emperor, why not pursue a three-pronged approach? The marriage alliance may be a ruse, but the deception shall be genuine, allowing Yen Guihong and me to catch the ruthless emperor off guard. Changxi looked at me with suspicion, and as Yen Guihong stepped forth from behind me, her eyes widened in realization. Yen Guihong, your leg. Her heart screamed in excitement. Yen Guihong is far superior to those two fools, Wei Lan and Yan Qing. Yet Changlo, that wretched girl, has seized the advantage. It seemed I would need to discuss further with the empress. I too wished for Yen Guihong to be my husband. Meeting her resentful gaze, I quietly returned her stare, awaiting her next move. The edict regarding the second princess's marriage was disseminated, while Yen Guihong and I busied ourselves with formulating the march routes and gathering provisions, scarcely pausing for meals or rest. On the day of my wedding, Changxi raised a toast to me, surpassing the emperor, sister, though our bond may not be profound, as daughters of the emperor. This drink shall serve as your farewell, for I do not know when you shall return. Yet her heart was whispering, drink this cup, and you shall take my place in the marriage alliance. I silently scoffed, discreetly pouring the wine into my sleeve. Only after watching her enter the bridal sedan did I exhale slightly. Turning back, I found Yan Qing gazing forlornly at the departing sedan, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. I had no intention of engaging further, yet he intercepted me, pouring a cup of wine for himself. As teacher and student, I am aware of my wrongs. Let this cup serve as my apology. He drank deeply, then cautiously poured another cup for me, saying softly, please do not be angry, all right? I fixed him with a cold stare, yet I heard his heart whisper, I only wish for Changlo to have a safe and happy life. Recalling the fond memories of the past, I sighed and consumed the cup in one gulp. A wave of dizziness washed over me, and when I regained consciousness, I found myself clad in bridal attire, bound within the sedan, with darkness having fallen outside. The curtain of the sedan was lifted, revealing Wei Lan's triumphant face as he declared, Yan Qing was indeed correct. You can hear our innermost thoughts. I was taken aback, realizing why Yan Qing had unexpectedly wished me well. He had set a trap for me long ago. You and Xier are both precious princesses. It matters not who accompanies Yen Guihong to the battlefield, Wei Lan sighed. Since you can hear my thoughts, you must know that my heart belongs to her, and I am willing to sacrifice everything for her sake. I glared at him. This is not a matter of love. Without my orders, the covert forces at the border cannot coordinate with Yen Guihong, which would lead to disaster. He looked at me as if I were a great calamity, then burst into laughter. You, a delicate princess, think you can command them? If they can heed your words, why not hers? Fury surged within me, and I tore through the ropes binding me, landing 2 resounding slaps upon Wei Lan. I had trained alongside General Yen since childhood, concealing my abilities from the world to avoid drawing attention. Wei Lan was struck so hard that stars danced before his eyes. He immediately leapt to his feet, pointing an accusatory finger at me, seething with rage. How dare you strike me? Do you believe I will truly deliver you to the ruthless emperor? I let out a cold laugh. Is this how you treat your savior? Years ago, at the Qianqiu banquet, Wei Lan had a falling out with the son of the Zhao family over trivial matters. The young master of Zhao, possessing a vile temperament, sought to ruin Wei Lan's reputation by deliberately leading the intoxicated Wei Lan to the dressing room of the Qin Wangfei, whose beauty was renowned and whose gentle demeanor was cherished by the Qin Wang. The Qin Wang, known for his volatile disposition, might have killed Wei Lan had I not sensed danger and swiftly knocked Wei Lan unconscious to drag him away. Yet, when I awoke, it was clearly Xier beside me, while Wei Lan remained dazed. I remarked coolly, "You were quite unruly back then, even yanking one of my jade hairpins from my hair." Such details had evidently never crossed his mind. Wei Lan fell silent, and I could hear his thoughts. No wonder when he later mentioned that hairpin to Changxi. She appeared utterly bewildered. "Chang'e," he urgently tried to explain, but I interrupted him. "For now, all you can do is masquerade as me and continue the marriage alliance to stabilize the ruthless emperor." Moments later, I donned a lightweight black robe and silently melted into the night. I rushed onward, exhausting 2 horses, and finally intercepted the visibly aggrieved Yan Guihong and the teary-eyed Changxi along the way. Upon inquiry, I learned that the emperor's wedding procession was just down the mountain, and it was indeed the perfect moment for ambush. Everyone awaited my command to flank the emperor, yet there was an unsettling stillness. Lifting my veil, I discovered that the person had already been replaced by the Na-Ve Changxi. The opportune moment had slipped away, and Changxi clung to Yan Guihong's arm. Her eyes filled with resentment as she glared at me. "Why must you always compete with me? I have returned Wei Lan and Yan Qing to you. Will you not leave the valiant General Yan for me?" Yan Guihong's forehead was vein-ridden, clearly incensed. On the battlefield where our parents were buried, she had the audacity to evoke matters of love. I decisively dragged her by the hair outside the tent, forcing her to face the city ablaze in the light of fire. This was once our homeland, now ravaged by war and its people displaced. I had once envied her the affection of our mother, yet now I felt fortunate to have not inherited a single ounce of her cunning malice. Should we triumph upon our return, I would certainly have a word with my father regarding her. If not, I would drag her down to hell with me. Changxi fell silent, her gaze lost as she watched the people weeping beneath the emperor's chariot, her heart filled for the first time with remorse. The wedding procession surged forward, heading straight for the emperor's stronghold. Meanwhile, our forces had circled to the rear. As soon as Wei Lan signaled me, my hidden guards and Yan Guihong's troops sprang into action, catching the emperor completely off guard. The battlefield was fiercely brutal. Even with our advantage, we could not escape casualties. That evening, as I tended to my wounds, Changxi arrived. She gazed at the injury on my shoulder, a flicker of pain crossing her eyes. "I am sorry. I thought you followed General Yan merely to bolster morale, and jealousy momentarily clouded my judgment. I never intended to truly harm you." Her eyes were filled with confusion. "Since childhood, you have excelled in everything. My skills in music, chess, calligraphy, and painting pale in comparison to yours. My mother appeared kind to me, yet would beat me with a whip in private. She could not comprehend why the refined lady she painstakingly raised could not measure up to you, a mischievous child nurtured by a wet nurse. Thus, she pushed me to undermine you, first through your childhood companion, the heir, and then your tutor. She never inquired about my likes or dislikes. I was left to mimic your preferences and sought to obtain everything you cherished." Her hands, now smeared with a cool ointment, gently circled my wound. "All along, I have been blinded by the hatred instilled in me by my mother. Now I realize you were meant to surpass me. General Yan is right. You are the most courageous and resilient woman in the world." A warm tear fell into my palm, and I understood that her words were sincere. On the day we returned triumphantly with the ruthless emperor's head, Wei Lan looked at me with admiration. He had finally mustered courage, fighting valiantly on the battlefield, yet at the cost of a leg, becoming the very thing he had once scorned, a cripple. My father personally welcomed us atop the city walls, flanked by my mother, whose expression was one of disbelief. Upon seeing me and Yan Guihong riding together, She subtly shook her head, casting a meaningful glance at the now trembling Changxi. At the welcome banquet, my father, having indulged in too much wine, held Yan Guihong's hand, rambling on. My plate was replenished with a piece of meat, and, upon turning, I found it was Yan Qing. How does the esteemed princess fare? He dared not meet my gaze. Yet I offered him a courteous smile. Am I not sitting right before you? You ought to cherish those present, lest your heart be split in twain. Changxi's plate bore a piece of meat as well. Unlike Wei Lan, who openly favored me, Yan Qing prided himself on his fairness. My father summoned me forward, his eyes brimming with affection. Chang'e is most favored in my heart. I was deeply moved by your recent composition, Yonghua Fu. Now that you have returned victorious, will you compose another piece to celebrate? No sooner had he spoken than a crash of wine cups rang out as Yan Qing stumbled to his feet, his gaze fixed intently on me. Yan Guihong stepped in front of me, frowning. Your Majesty has yet to determine the wedding date between the minister and the princess. My father laughed heartily. You have long desired to marry my Chang'e. Today, I grant your wish. Spotting Changxi nearby, he beckoned her forward, kindly stating, the marriage of Xier can also be arranged. Wei Lan is valiant, and Yan Qing is gentle. Both were chosen by your mother for you. Wei Lan did not attend the banquet, while Yan Qing, as if struck by a thunderbolt, stumbled and knelt in the hall. I refuse. My father's expression froze for a moment, and my mother crushed the lotus seed in her hand. Yan Qing gazed at me, his voice trembling. I have long been enamored with the princess. In this life, I will marry no one but her. I secretly tightened my grip on Yan Guihong's hand, weary of how to placate him, and indeed, I heard his heart raging. After spending considerable time together, I understood he was not a stone, but rather a heavy vessel of jealousy. When I selected a husband for Chang'e, you said nothing. The Empress informed me you favored Changxi. Now, as I bestow marriage upon you, you claim your heart belongs to Chang'e. Do you understand the consequences of deceiving your sovereign? My father's thunderous wrath compelled even me to bow my head, yet Yan Qing persisted in his futile struggle. At that time, I did not see my own heart clearly. The princess is one I have personally guided, and I cannot bear to let go. Yan Guihong could no longer contain himself, rolling up his sleeves to confront him. Amidst the chaos, Changxi, clad in plain garments, gracefully stepped forward, kneeling before my father and mother, softly declaring, I do not wish to marry. I only desire to pray for the fallen soldiers in the flickering light of an ancient lamp. She had disrupted the morale of the troops and nearly ruined our plans. Execution would not have been excessive. But she was not solely to blame. She had not been properly raised. My mother, losing control, stood up, preparing to strike me. Do you intend to harm your sister before you are satisfied? I countered her hand, my gaze icy as the last vestige of my yearning for her love evaporated. I must ask you, mother, must I die for you to spare Changxi and me? Upon hearing this, even my father grew alarmed, hastily inquiring what I meant. Changxi, tears streaming down her face, publicly revealed my mother's schemes. From her pretending to accept Wei Lan's life-saving grace to stealing the Yonghua Fu that I had penned solely for my father. From sabotaging the selection of suitors to replacing me in the bridal sedan, sending me off for the marriage alliance. The crowd gasped, realizing that the one who envied and resented me the most in this world was, in fact, my own mother. The emperor, engulfed in fury, found himself accompanied by the empress, who had stood by his side for decades. From the very beginning, he was aware of her disdain towards me. Yet he could only feign reconciliation amidst the superficial discord. While it is relatively easy to evade an open threat, a concealed malice is far more treacherous. Unbeknownst to him, the empress harbored such sordid intentions in secret. Ultimately, he decreed that she be confined to the Changqiu Palace, a desolate place meant solely for her solitude. Meanwhile, Yan Qing was stripped of his title as Grand Tutor for his disrespect before the court and was dispatched to a desolate land. On the day of my grand wedding to Yan Guihong, the emperor bestowed upon me the title of Crown Princess, expressing his profound sense of indebtedness towards me. Yet, I comprehended that this man before me was the one who cared for me with utmost sincerity in this world. Just before ascending the carriage, I was once again halted by the limping Wei Lan. With eyes aflame, he merely uttered, If I had consented to this marriage from the outset, would our fates have diverged so? I offered him a faint smile, replying, "In this life, let us part amicably, wishing never to meet again." I could still perceive the turmoil within him. He truly regretted, his heart overflowing with unrestrained affection for me. Alas, I found no need for another vibrant Lingji mushroom.